Whitebeard is the Zoro killer. I'm very, very confident in saying that. And a couple weeks ago, let me go ahead and scroll down and see exactly when I was talking about it. So a couple weeks ago, I made a video called Let's Talk About Zoro. And in this video specifically, I mentioned that I think that Whitebeard could be a deck that would be a counter to Zoro. And, you know, some people agreed in the comments, some people disagreed. But I'm very firm in my opinion in thinking that Whitebeard can be a really, really good matchup against Zoro. And again, I'll go over that in this video. I also had made a video talking about how Whitebeard is insane and he's broken. And I still think that that's true. I think that it was just unexplored. And as people have been trying to find counters to Zoro, people have revisited Whitebeard and noticed that he is very, very powerful. Now, with that being said, do I think that Whitebeard all of a sudden is going to be the new tier 0 deck? No, Whitebeard has weaknesses, and we're going to go over that. But I definitely think that the OPO2 meta is a lot more open than we thought initially. And right before I get into everything, I just want to say how much I love this game, because we seen that push and pull in set 1, and set 2, it was looking kind of bleak because we seen Zoro dominating everything. But now I can confidently say that that's not going to be the case. I think that we're going to see a lot more Whitebeard, and we're going to see a lot more other decks as well. But you guys are here to talk about the Zoro, or to hear me talk about the Zoro killer, so let's go ahead and talk about it. So first and foremost, why Edward Newgate? So let's talk about why Zoro is strong, right? Let's do that first. So let's go ahead and pull up Zoro here. So as you guys know, Zoro can give all of your characters plus 1000 power with the investment of 1 Dawn. This is a very strong ability because this card allows you to play insane levels of offense very early on by utilizing cards that have a low cost. So for example, you can play things like Sunny-kun, who is a Straw Hat and is searchable off Nami and has 3000 power for 1 cost. By using your Zoro effect, he's automatically 4000. Now, is that enough to swing a leader? No, you can invest another Dawn, or you can use an extremely broken card that got introduced in set 2 and Makino to pump it up even further, right? So that's the idea of Zoro. We all know what makes Zoro strong. That's the early game. Then in the late game, he also has access to Edward Newgate, who's also a very, very powerful card, allowing Zoro to be 7k, but then also having him be, also giving Zoro a defensive option as well. So that overall is what makes Zoro so strong. But if we go back to Zoro's character card, and again, what enables all of this and enables his early game to be so impressive is because all characters get plus 1000 power. Now, of course, this is detrimental to every leader in the game with 5000 power because it makes it very easy to swing into. But when you look at Edward Newgate, he is the only leader in the game at this point that has 6000 power, meaning that Zoro is going to have to invest that 1 more Dawn, or Makino is going to have to be on the board in order to pump up, making it 1k easier to play defense on Edward Newgate that no other leader has access to. This is something that only Edward Newgate has access to. So that's the first thing that automatically makes it difficult. Now, when you think about it as well, a lot of the cards that Red play are going to be low power count. And because of that, Red has a lot of things that can KO things with low power count, be it Vista with 3000 power or less, or other cards that are in Red. It's what's built into it. You also have Portgas the Ace to reduce attacks, all of those things. So there's cards already in Red that can deal with Zoro. So now the question becomes, okay, well, Whitebeard is just going to continue to take life from himself every turn. So if Zoro just plays patient, if he plays slow, then he should be able to just swing at him once he's in lethal range, right? Well, the thing is with Edward Newgate is if you take a look at his ability, when it comes to him, his ability is actually a boon. It's not a negative. You're drawing 2 cards every turn. And we've talked about this in my video. You're drawing for your draw phase and you're drawing when you end your turn. And so because of that, you have access to a ton of defense. You will be able to draw into things like your Marco. You'll be able to draw into your guard points, your radical beams, your Otamas, your diamond Jozus. You're simply going to get to a point where you're going to be able to play immaculate defense. Now you combo those things like playing Blenheim or playing things like Barto or Chopper or any of these blockers to play on defense once you get to really late. Of course, obviously, you have your Marco as well. Now you have blockers on board, and of course, you know, some Zoro decks will start adopting the starter deck Luffy in order to swing past blockers. I wouldn't be surprised to see that, but a lot of lists are not even playing a single copy of that right now. So again, meta check, meta call. You'll be able to have a bunch of blockers, you'll have a bunch of counters, your defense will be immaculate, but then on offense, you only need one Dawn on your Edward Newgate for him to be a threat. In this deck, 1k counters are 2k counters. And it's very, very self-explanatory. I know that makes no sense, but every single character, every single leader in the game has 5,000 power. And so the rule of, oh yeah, let me get my attack to 7,000 so my opponent has to discard 2 cards doesn't work with Edward Newgate, because if he simply has a 2k counter, then he's 8k, right? So because of that, effectively, you force your opponent to play one more Dawn in order to reach that threshold. So you actually need 3 Dawn instead of 2 Dawn, which is good for you. And because of that, your 1k counters are basically your 2k counters, right? So that's something to keep in mind. Now, the other thing that makes Whitebeard very strong is you have access to Seaquake. And again, if you look at all of the really annoying cards that Zoro plays at this current point that we've seen in the meta, the only card that really escapes this is going to be Whitebeard, right? We've seen some people running some, what's her name? Nico Robbins, so maybe there's that. But even if that's the case, everything else that's actually problematic can be dealt with Seaquake, right? In terms of controlling the board early. Edward Newgate only needing 1 Dawn to swing to hit that 7k mark is also really good. And then you have things like King Do and Atmos that are really, really good to play on curve that you could also use to start swinging into Zoro. So all of a sudden you get to that late game point where you're slowly chipping away at Zoro. A lot of Zoros aren't running a lot of defensive cards. If anything, they are running Red Hawk, they have Otama, and that's about it. So you're going to be able to get your attacks to go through. So then now when you get to that late game, oh shit, Zoro's going to have to try to end the game. But now you have a whole bunch of blockers. Now you have your radical beams, you have your guard points. You're able to play insane defense because you're able to draw 2 times every turn. The turn comes back to you, you end the game. That is how Edward Newgate can counter Zoro. And I firmly believe we will start seeing a lot more Whitebeard. Now, I will talk about some counters as well, but before that, I want to talk about like the core of what you'll see in a lot of decks going forward, I believe. So you could play Edward Newgate with a Straw Hat engine, or you could play it with a Whitebeard Pure engine. For me, I've been having a ton of fun with the Whitebeard Pure engine. But the Straw Hat engine, you can use like Nami's, both the starter deck Nami as well as the Searcher Nami, in order to have more Dawn manipulation, because Dawn manipulation is actually really, really important in this deck as well. And I believe that version makes it a little bit easier. You could also play a mixture of both. Instead of running Atmos, you can run Film Luffy from the Film promo packs, 4 cost, 6,000 power, or you can run starter deck Frankie as well, which is 4 cost, 6,000 power. Sorry about that, my phone just went off. But I do this all in one take, you feel me? You have King Do, who I think is really good to play on a curve, 5 cost, 7,000 power, essentially like your Virgo. I think a lot of people are starting to see a lot more value in the number 7,000, and being able to play that on a curve of 5 is very, very strong. For me, I like playing Parkos D Ace. This is not necessarily a staple. I have seen some builds right now going around not playing a single copy of this, and I can understand why it could be a little bit risky. I think it depends. I think that 2 is a nice number, but with that being said, I could also see myself dropping this, but right now I'm testing 2 and it does feel good. Radical Beam and Guard Point, I think that these are not negotiable. This is, if you play Edward Newgate and you start building your deck, you slap these in first. These are the first cards you put in. Radical Beam is simply way too strong in Edward Newgate to not play a max of, because for 1 Dawn you get a 4,000 counter, Guard Point being slightly weaker, being 3,000, but still really, really good. Because of that, I dropped my copies to 3. I could see an argument to play 4 copies of Guard Point, but for me, I think 3 is a nice number. Of course, you have your Otama, that's absolutely standard. And then, of course, you have Vista as well in order to pop things. Diamond Jozu also being a 2k counter is absolutely huge. It's absolutely disgusting. And then also on top of that, you have the fact that it has Rush and can help you close out games. So all of those things are reasons why I think that this deck is going to be very, very good. You have a really good core. You have a really good matchup against Zoro. You have cards that can deal with it. You have your blockers, and then you also have access to Moby Dick if you want to play that version that allows your late game to be super, super strong and super oppressive. There's other cards that you could put into this deck as well, depending on how you want to play. I know some people are playing Whitey Bay in order to attack active characters as well to get rid of Zoro, some of his annoying cards. So there's different ways to build it. I know some people, I was talking to one of my friends that lives in the States that also playtests a lot of OPO2, and he was saying that playing squad is actually an option too. I'm not for that personally, but I can definitely see situations where it could be valuable. But I think that's what makes it beautiful. Obviously, you have your Whitebeard Pirates to search if you play that version. Yeah, I think it's fun because you're going to see different Whitebeard decks coming around. It's not just going to be the same Zoro. Like with Zoro, we just seen everybody running the exact same list. Everybody was running the same list. Like, it's so disgusting. But at least with Whitebeard, you're going to see a lot more changes. Now, in terms of counters, right? Again, I don't think that this is going to be tier 0. We're going to see a lot more Kaido. Kaido is going to become a lot more of a problem, I believe, because Kaido has a very good matchup against Edward Newgate. Kaido usually doesn't have the greatest matchup against Red, but specifically against Edward Newgate, it's very strong because you're able to trash one of the life instead. And then, of course, all you really need to do is just get that one hit in. You have big beaters as well. You don't really run into that situation of not having enough power, right? You have Kaido that's 12k. You have this Kaido that's 9k that a lot more people are starting to play. You have your 9-cost Kaido that everybody runs that has 10k power, right? So you don't really run into that problem once you get to that point of the game where you don't have power to swing and get over defense, because you can always invest in Dawn and you'll be able to play your offense. So I think we're going to see a lot more Kaido as in terms of countering Edward Newgate, and I think we're going to see a lot more Edward Newgate to counter Zoro. So we'll see if I'm right. We'll see how this goes. But I'm having a ton of fun with Edward Newgate. I would love to know your guys' thoughts down below. Do you think that Edward Newgate is going to be the Zoro killer? How do you think that the meta is going to continue to evolve? And again, this is why I love this game, because the meta continues to evolve as more games are played, more testing is done. Like, we thought that Zoro was just going to be tier 0 and it would be over, but now it looks like we have some other contending decks. Kaido is going to consistently be up there. Edward Newgate, new kid on the block. I think he's going to be really good. We have Zoro. We obviously have Kinemon. We have Kid, who won the other event, right? Although some people are saying it's kind of cope. But with that being said, OPO2 is not a tier 0 format. What are your guys' thoughts? Let me know in the comment section below. I will catch you guys later.